Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
Welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And welcome back to part 2 of our look into religious horror. We know it's after Halloween as this comes out, but we always like talking about horror and religion.
Well, you know, when we have fall back and everything's dark and sad, might as well keep going into that darkness.
I did. I lit a candle, to like set the mood, and it exploded. Like the flame got really high.
Did you say a seance or something?
No.
Did you say something 3 times?
No, I would never. But it freaked me out, Samantha. It honestly freaked me out. And I have been watching a lot of these religious horror movies to prepare for these episodes.
I had to slow down. Also, I was like, I need a break.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, as mentioned.
Yes.
So if you haven't listened to part 1, go back and check that one out. We are just going over some of the major themes of largely religious horror movies, and specifically Western Christian religious horror movies. A lot of them Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
But in the last episode, we ended up talking about marriage horror. And I said, there's been a lot of influx of movies around religion and grief and women. And so that's where we're going to pick up now. Just with a very brief aside, I said, I wanted to do a whole horror movies and mental health episode, and it just became too big. So this is just kind of a brief mention. But there is this thing that's been happening a lot. It's not new, but that we've seen a lot lately of the motherhood and religion and grief thing and how that plays out in a horror movie scenario. A lot of movies about praying hard enough to bring your child back to life. You mentioned Bring Her Back in the last episode. That is a very similar theme. The Others, which was a movie I loved when I was young with Nicole Kidman.
This is also one of those movies that I watched 4 times, not realizing I'd watched it 4 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time I would start it, I'm like, I've never seen this. I have seen this.
I have seen this one. Yes. Yes. But
every time.
I didn't know. I feel like when I watched that, and I watched it at least within the past 4 years because I watched it during the pandemic. I feel like when I watched that, I was so young the first time, and I was reading a whole paper about how religious it is because Nicole Kidman character is very religious and has her children read these Bible passages and is just very strict. And in it, her children are allergic to light. So it just has to be dark all the time. And maybe you remember, Samantha. I didn't recognize it, but the whole let there be light. The theme of the light always moving is something big in the Bible. And then I just was surprised. There were so many things where this is from this part of the Bible. This is from this part of the Bible, and just having them living in the dark. What happens after death, as we mentioned, that's a big reason that these movies are popular, I think, and why they resonate is that we don't know what happens after death, but that was a big theme in this movie. Hereditary, also, you've got a loss of a kid and a cult thing happening and seeing the grief play out in the way that it does and what it leads to.
The creation of Annabelle has that theme too.
Oh, yeah.
Very horrifying beginnings scene of the death of the child. I was like, that's unnecessary.
No. I've seen that movie, but it's been a long time, so I don't remember. But yeah.
Sometimes I have to sit and connect these because when they try to go backwards to connect these movies and I'm like, I need to find all the faults, I have to try to figure out what they were doing because I'm very confused about, because they took The Conjuring and then split it off into 5 different things, which included Annabelle and then also The Nun. all these things that I'm like, I don't know what's happening anymore. But anyway, Annabelle creation, they do have a loss of a child with a lot of religious play and possession in it. Creepy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Indeed. Also creepy. Oh, and again, I should say, none of these are sponsors. Also, kind of like what we talked about in our recent horror movie roundup from me. Always look these up before you watch them. And that's especially true for this one. A Dark Song.
I don't know this one.
It's about a woman whose child has died, and she finds an occultist in like remote England, and he has her go through these like horrific things that he says will bring her child back, or bring the angel back that can bring her child back. And it's really gross because you can't tell what he's just like making her do to see what he can make her do versus what is actually true. It does have a really cool end scene, I have to say. But yeah, it's that same idea of like the grieving mother willing to do all kinds of things to try to bring her child back.
I'm having memories of a movie as you talk about this as well. Like she was pregnant, goes on a walk, loses a baby, gets stalked by something, and then there's a jewelry box. Do you know what I'm talking about? I feel like this is part of like our guessing game. I watched this one movie, and she's like about to be a mother, but I think she loses the baby, but then she gets possessed and ends up having a demon.
Oh, that does sound familiar, but that could mean I've seen so many movies.
So the movie I'm talking about is Malicious. I just looked it up, y'all, and it doesn't have a great rating, but I do remember like she unleashes a demon, and it like gets inside of her bed. There's so many things happening in this one, and I think it's a cyclical thing because it kind of gets inherited to the next person, if I remember. But it's a woman who loses her baby, ends up getting a demon instead, willing to die for it and willing to let everyone else die for it. There you go. But yeah, grief, like that we've talked about this continuously, like how we've also talked about this in like Scarlet Witch, where she is willing to destroy the entire world and all of those around them for her children that no longer exist. Like it's kind of that same like grief and loss is that the women are allowing evil in order to do this. Where does that go into the reproductive justice line? Who knows?
Yeah. I have to... Okay,
say it.
So we did our episode on the Blair Witch Project, and in it I mentioned I had seen Blair Witch 2, but I couldn't remember it. I rewatched it right before this, Samantha.
Okay.
And wow, what a film. Whoa. A lot going on there. But it does have a loss of a child in it. And that person is the one that's painted as the villain. She is the one that's like, basically they're like, how did you kill that child? And it was very, like, for a movie that I was mostly laughing aloud at. I was like, oh gosh, this is upsetting.
I think that's where it gets to some of these things, like, and why we're talking a little more about the religious horror and how it like really does portray a lot of mothers and women in general. Like it gets to the point that it's like, why are we entertaining this entertaining this subject line or entertaining this plot line? Because it's so disturbing on such a level that you're like, this is demeaning in so many ways, and I'm not sure who is demeaning anymore.
Yeah. Well, and the only reason I watched that movie I watched it for this because it came up in an article I read, and they're like, it's actually fascinating because it's when in the author's opinion was supposed to paint like how we villainized Heather from the first movie, which you and I both talked about, the woman, and it became, here's how we villainized her. And the reason also it comes up is they were calling her a witch, and that is we're going to get more into witches in our religious horror part in a second, but they kept saying, she's the witch, and they just And that was the main reason why. And it was just so she couldn't convince them otherwise. And it's, at least according to that article, they thought it was interesting how everybody else was, in the end, they think supposed to be the villain. And she was the one that was, they killed her. I mean, spoilers. They killed her.
It happened.
But yeah, I mean, that, again, so many of these things we're talking about, you could extrapolate outside of religious horror, but because in our country and a lot of other places, when you're talking about birth or marriage or anything like that, it does have a religious aspect, and it has for a long time. So this idea of mothers grieving, it's often painted as sort of a failure on their part. Like they did something wrong, and that is why
they've allowed this spirit in or something.
Yeah, exactly. They did not protect their children.
And they were weak.
Yeah, and they might have let the demon in.
Exactly. And like, I think it's interesting because I was thinking about that with like loss and grief and that about like single motherhood. Because I'm like, you know what? A lot of these movies actually exemplify, or the absence of the father. Like they travel all the time. He's gone all the time. All these kind of narratives. Some of the movies I was thinking about was like Bless the Child, which I really loved that movie as a kid. I'm not really sure why. It wasn't super scary. It wasn't super, like, you had this angelic, and instead of an antichrist, because she could have been, she could also be the hope, the new, like, Jesus. It was an interesting take on that. And yes, Catholicism is very much involved in this one as well. Rufus Sewell, I believe his name. He was an evil guy in so many movies. The Holiday including. That's Christmas time, though. We already talked about that. But yeah, and then Babadook, which is not necessarily religious, but like we were talking about previously, like not all of them are religious, but it does have like that religious tone when it comes to like demons. Like the demons is a connotation that there's something evil. So spirituality exists in there, but like you've got the single mother with supposedly a neurodivergent child who like kind of helps perpetuate her stresses. And then you have like the Curse of the La Llorona. I had to look that one up because it's based on motherhood and child loss as well. Again, I believe it's also based on Catholicism because that is also a part of the Conjuring world, right?
Ooh, I don't know. Is it?
I think it might be the same director.
I think, yeah.
But I think it might be. Somebody might correct me. Again, the second Conjuring, we have the haunting in England. And she is a single mother, newly divorced. The kids were really upset. And one of the things they say in that movie is, oh, you were open. This type of tragedy opened you up to possession. Again. And then you also have Poltergeist, which is not necessarily religious, but it is. But she is a single mother that does everything to get that child. It's been a long time. That's just the trailers of that movie freaked me out. And also all of the bad vibes that happened on set, including the death of one of the child stars. I'm like, that movie is a no for me. Was it 2? I knew it was a young girl for sure, but
no, the older girl was murdered.
Oh, God.
But they weren't divorced, but the dad was away all the time. Yeah,
like she was kind of left alone with the child, as well as Carrie, who the connotation was maybe either she had her out of wedlock or she was raped. Like I could never understand the mother's hate for this child. There's so much to this, but you have so many narratives of single motherhood, like as part of the problem. Again, there are different points as it's because they aren't able to fulfill the completion of family. Like that's the conversation. So therefore, the family is very vulnerable. They do not have the perfect family or a setup or complete familyhood. Or is it that they are the most likely to survive these scenarios? We had this conversation about women outliving men. Wives outliving their husbands and having like their actual second perk in life. But this means that you might be set up to be haunted and possessed. Or perhaps is it that men can come and save them? So they have to have a prop up in order to be saved by a man, which oftentimes doesn't happen. They just end up dying. The men end up dying is what I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they come in too late. And it's like, what are you even...
Why are you here? If you're watching The Nun, the one priest dies in the second one. Spoiler alert. And I was like, what? Without even making an appearance.
Yeah, they're just like, he's dead. Oh.
He's dead. Sorry.
I could have really used his help. All right, well.
I was like, okay. And by the way, the second nun has a single mother as well.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they're kind of the heroines to it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still single mother in this plot. Like, who is possibly going to be taken by evil spirit by the man that she's interested in. Ruh-roh.
Well, see, okay. I don't want to derail us. So very quickly.
That is fair.
I watched The Nun and The Nun 2 last night because you had mentioned them.
Oh, you did mention you did?
And I was like, I feel like I've seen them, but I can't remember. I had.
You had seen it's one of those for you?
Yeah. Well, the second one, I was like, no, immediately I knew I'd seen that one. But for some reason, the first one, I don't know. But I had also recently, because it has been October and Halloween, and I have these YouTube series I watch that are just scary videos. And I had recently seen... We are going to get more into The Conjuring later, but I had recently seen the first videotaped exorcism of Maurice, and which is a
that
thing.
Actually exists.
It exists, and it's like it looks exactly like it in the movie.
Okay, and
I did not know that the first time I saw The Nun or The Conjuring, but now that I'd seen it, I was like, oh my gosh! And so I was like, oh, that his wife is there. We'll get into this more later, but. She has her own what she says happened, but according to her, she was never possessed. She was just there helping him out.
Okay. But she had said that he was possessed.
Oh, yeah. Well, according to her.
Interesting. I didn't realize it was also based on that.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw the video, I was like, oh, I've seen that. It looks exactly like it.
Interesting. Huh. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so the second nun has a single mother. I thought that was it.
Yes.
So does he marry her? Is that the person
they're married. They're married, and she lived long after
they had the daughter.
I don't remember that, but I think so. But
or at least he had a stepdaughter or something.
Yeah. But no, that's definitely based on that thing.
Well, again, this universe. Who knew? That makes sense. But I thought this was interesting because I did find an article in this specific conversation. Now, he's not necessarily talking about religious horror, but he is talking about horror and single mothers. So the article is titled Mother, Oh God, Mother, Analyzing the Horror of Single Mothers in Contemporary Hollywood Horror, John Lewis. And this is, he wrote it for the University of Nottingham in the UK, He writes, I argue that as single parents, the life choices these women make, regardless of whether they have never been married and divorced or married and widowed, can be interpreted as catalysts for horror in these films by presenting the view with the horror of an ineffectual or monstrous single parent mothers. However, I explore the way in which these films also offer self-consciously critical explorations of patriarchy and the dominant ideologies that suppress women, as well as others who resist definitions within patriarchal frameworks. So in his actual article, he was comparing, I believe, The Ring, Sixth Sense, and Babadook.
Oh, The Ring.
Yeah, because I do talk, but it's not necessarily religious. It kind of is cultish. So we're not talking much about Eastern, because I did think about that as well as like in Exuma, as well as The Wailing, and as well as, again, The Ring. They do have a horror level of religious antics, of like cultish things. But again, that's a digression that we're not getting into here. However, because it's not Christian based, this is all very like Eastern religious based. Or cult back into. But I did find that interesting in his conversation when he was comparing these like women who are single motherhoods and everybody. He in the article talks specifically about how, yes, the degradation of the conservative family because these women are doing this alone and dare to survive without a man present. Of course, you have in The Sixth Sense a man present, but kind of.
Yeah. Right. He's, halfway there.
She doesn't acknowledge him, so there's that. But then we have like The Ring. You do have a male character, but he is useless and soon dead.
Yeah. Watch that too.
And the Babadook, you really don't have any male characters in that, except the Babadook.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he's male. I don't know. Maybe he is. That's the whole point. Oh.
Well, and I won't go too much into this, but it did cause quite a firestorm as the recent movie, The Woman in the Yard.
Oh, yeah. I have not watched that.
Well, essentially there was kind of a tragedy in the man of the family. The father was lost, and a woman is trying to raise her kids, and you have this entity that is growing closer and closer. And it's kind of an ambiguous ending, but I believe the viewer is meant to decide whether or not, because the woman in the yard is death, whether or not she takes her own life or stays with her kids. And it caused this whole thing of people being like, well, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to talk about mental health in horror movies, but it's because it caused a lot of conversation about that. But it also was like, this whole idea that it has been women who stay strong and keep fighting. And this was, if you're saying what we think you're saying, that's kind of upsetting.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of back and forth about that movie. So
that's interesting. No, but I find this conversation really intriguing in that why do they need so many single mothers, or at least like absent father movies? It should be a connotation about men, but instead it's this conversation that it seems that the women fail or fall apart without men, and they allow for, again, a weakness in this conversation, in this move. I did think about that with, like, if you look at again, Annabelle, the first one with the I guess her origins into the doll. Mm-hmm. If you know, you know. He's not absent, but he's definitely not there. He's not dead or gone, but he's definitely absent a lot. A lot of the things that happen to her when he's gone.
Yeah.
In her beginning in adventures in motherhood. Alfre Woodard, she comes in as kind of a mentor, has to sacrifice herself because she lost a child as well as her husband. Like, there's so many conversations in this level of like, okay, what is this narrative? Why does it have to be that this weak link is the opening of all this religious horror? Again, if you look at Catholicism, if you look at religion, Western religion itself, the ideal is, and even the setup, and when we talked about our religious trauma, is the completion of man-woman unity, like, which is completely absurd because, like, the church is not a woman. Jesus sure probably was a man, and God is neither. So what? But this Holy Trinity conversation of the completion of family, this is what it is: the marriage between a man and a woman. So without the man, women will fall, and because women are the beginning of sin, they are the weak link. And it's this kind of whole long prelude. But at the same time, if you look at this dude's article and agree, like, they're the ones that survive it. The Ring goes into the ring too, and she's like, I know how to get rid of this. I'm going to let someone else die.
She says, I'm not your fucking mother.
Exactly. And that's what he does. But that's kind of that level of like, they have to. So maybe it is a fight against this. But again, it is that conversation of which way are we looking at single motherhood.
Yeah. And another movie, again, we're just going to have to come back and do a whole separate episode on Eastern religious horror, but Dark Water came up a lot in that conversation too, because it's a lot about grief and single motherhood and trying to raise this kid, and a lot of it is kind of it feels like a manifestation of a mental, like, depression or something like that. Like,
right.
That's what a lot of those horror movies do, is it makes you think, like, is this real, or is she okay? But that is a big theme in all of this. Another thing, like, this is a huge topic we're going to condense, but cults and witches.
That should be in its own episode, because we were talking about that. Like, there's too many.
Yeah, there are, and we have talked about witches so much in media specifically.
Yeah,
but when we're talking about this religious horror episodes, I mean, yeah, it's a ton. But I think some of the ones that stood out to me, The Witch, which we did do, an episode on Conjuring 3 specifically deals with witches.
I just watched Weapons.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get into that in a second. Yes. The Other Lamb, which is an older, kind of more obscure movie, but this was a very like, it was a cult movie it was a very feminist cult movie where all the women started to realize that their male cult leader was maybe not very good. Oh, Heretic. Oh my gosh.
I haven't been ready for that one.
Okay. I think that I just want to say this outline is just a lot of random thoughts that we had. So I'm not sure why I've put it here specifically, but I think it's because in that movie, Hugh Grant's character believes every religion is a cult. Everything is you're being brainwashed, I guess. So it was sort of an interesting take on this because I don't think that's a spoiler at all if you watch the trailer, but he's the bad guy. But he basically is trying to prove how smart he is and how right he is, and is trying to trick these two young Mormon girls who came to his door. And he's not a good guy. He's just not a good guy. And he's also a liar. And his point,
glasses give it away.
There are so many things in that movie where later I read an article on it and was like, immediately his wallpaper should have told you. And I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, you're right.
His glasses immediately tell me he's the bad guy.
Yeah, he's no good. He's no good. But I do think it's interesting that even in that case where he is a very strong atheist, like anti-religion, it was still about he was attacking women. I mean, and he had been like, because he thought they were stupid and he thought they were easily manipulated. And so even in that case, you have this idea that because even with witches, it's, they're in the religious horror sense, it's usually that they are manipulated by the devil or they're too weak to withstand evil. In the case of The Other Lamb, it's that they're too weak to withstand this man's charisma who's telling them what to do. And as we've discussed, as I mentioned earlier, like this whole idea of like the Blair Witch Project, you see this blaming women thing happen over and over again in our society. Outside of horror movies, we have the burn the witch, blaming women idea. You can see our episode on Cassandra for that, which was not Western Christianity, but still relevant. And I don't need to remind anyone who's listening to this show, but this is a real thing that happened that left thousands of people around the world and throughout history dead. Mostly women of, you're a witch, you can't prove otherwise, we shall burn you alive.
If not, God will protect you.
Exactly. Oh, I won't get into it, but I just saw this post on Nextdoor that my blood was boiling. But basically it was like, God will protect you. You don't need to worry about it. Like, okay.
Don't tell me about SNAP benefits. I'll punch somebody.
It was that. It was that. Anyway, you mentioned Weapons. So Weapons is like one of the most popular horror movies that came out this year. Not to spoil it at all, but there is a character who is a woman. These kids go missing and she is blamed. They graffiti witch on her car, and just everybody, we see these kind of modern witch hunts in all kinds of things. And it's interesting. I read a paper about religious horror, how it's interesting that, a lot of movies we talk about are very women coming together to form a coven, and that's very positive. But in religious horror, a lot of times the witch is bad. Right. The witch is bad.
Right.
And that has been something that we have seen historically. And that is this idea that the witch deserves whatever comes
be
her
ripped
way.
apart by little children.
Spoilers. Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that. There were so many things I wasn't ready for in that movie, just so you know.
It's from the same people who did Barbarian, so yeah. Anyway. Also, you know, it's interesting / upsetting to me how men have usurped this, because I feel like women are still getting the like blame the witch, burn the witch in our very like modern era of she's wrong, I don't like her, whatever. Whereas men use it as like, it's just a witch hunt, everybody's out to get me, when yeah, you probably did do the thing, man. So
And then some.
And then some. Yeah. So that's frustrating. But that is also, that has been a part of our religion and is a big theme in religious horror. For another time, but I had a whole Star Wars aside I was going to go into right here, but I'm just not going to do it. This is already going pretty long, so. But I will come back to that. I will. Life Day is coming up, so maybe that'll be my Life Day gift.
Okay.
Another thing that we did talk about very briefly in a Monday mini when I was by myself because Samantha had COVID is the idea of who gets possessed in these movies. Possession horror, when you're talking about that. Again, when you're talking about Western Christian religion, it's usually little girls or women getting possessed for things like they dare to use a Ouija board, puberty, mental health, corrupted innocence. And I have to say, like, again, I'm not religious. I haven't been in a long time, but it is a scary idea that one day something could take over your body. It also relates back to the loss of body autonomy and reproductive rights that we talked about in part 1.
What is that movie with the mirror?
Oculus?
Yeah. That was an intensive one with the mental health stuff, with the you don't know what you can believe, the Ouija board, and then like, yeah, that one was really flipped you out. And then you also have no bodily autonomy because you were like watching things happen that you did not know you were doing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's very, very scary. And, you know, in this case, it can also be a metaphor for sexual assault as well. But it has, for a long time, been something is wrong with these usually young girls, and it's demonic. That's all it can be. And so who do you bring in? Who do you call to save them? Usually religious men who are allowed a position that women are not. Women cannot be priests or whatever it is. So it's men who come in to save these young girls, which I think is really interesting given the reality of the Catholic Church's cover-up of sexual abuse. But
right. Also that they are powerful enough to be possessed and kill things, but not powerful enough to like stop it.
Right.
Without the assistance of a man. Right.
And the man, like the idea of it's like a man has to come in and save this girl's innocence. I don't know. Again, I like these movies. I understand the critiques. I think it's good that we have them and know about them, but I do like these movies.
Right.
So some big examples of this are The Exorcist, The Last Exorcist, The Taking of Deborah Logan, Sinister, The Conjuring, Stigmata, which I'm going to get into that in a minute. But there are some notable exceptions. So Hereditary and Paranormal Activity, that's where the demon prefers the male host. That the demon thinks that the male host is superior to a woman. So those are sort of exceptions. So is Rosemary's Baby, I guess. Notably, all of these movies don't explicitly deal with Christianity. There are like signs and symbols sometimes, but it's not really the focus. Even the non-Satanist man in Rosemary's Baby hands Rosemary over to the Satanist after she trusts him, implying men are the problem, not necessarily religion, which is, given the creator and what happened with that, interesting.
Probably his own true story.
Something trying to work itself out. In The Exorcist, non-religious medical establishments don't believe Reagan, who's the young girl who gets possessed, or her mother, and they perform incredibly painful and invasive tests on them. So there's been a lot of papers recently, or just articles, about how that movie is as much about demon possession as it is about medical profession not believing women. Because that is really upsetting.
That makes sense.
Scenes in the whole thing where nobody believes him. And then, as mentioned, we're going to have to come back and do the kind of mental health religion part outside of this. But that was also, I mean, like, if you look at The Exorcist, they were very much, this is just a mental health issue. This can't be, like, nobody, not even the religious people didn't believe her. The medical professional people didn't believe her. And that has been, when we've been talking about grief and all of that stuff, it's a big theme.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to just mention Seven, the movie Seven, because it uses the 7 deadly sins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, a part of that film is also the kind of famous "what's in the box," like using women to incite a reaction to get these sins out of people.
He definitely used, like, the character, the villain hated women, like the whole, like, raping of women with a spear. That was probably, like, I think God didn't show it, but, like, the ideal of that as a punishment, I was like, what the hell? Like, the level that they stretched in how they could torture women in these types of movies, and also her being pregnant. It was like they wanted to add all of the things to make you know that how much he hated and despised women. Not necessarily the writer, not necessarily the director, all that, but, like, the storytelling was in that reference, and not even the hero could help in this level. And it feels like a lot of these where we see possessions, like, that usually ends with some type of horrific death or regret.
Yep.
That is, it is that catalyst of, like, even the good ones, like you have to use this as a source of ache.
Yep.
To see how horrifically we can punish women or marginalize people in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, in something like The Exorcist, like, they both men die trying to save this child, and then Father Karras comes back in the third one, which the third one is also very scary, and it does have the threatening of the daughter, where the demon's trying to kill the daughter, but it is kind of usually a violent death, and maybe it's like the man is like, I found my faith, and then dies. Well, that brings us to religious superheroes.
And then dies. Religious superheroes. Here we go.
Yes. So I would say The Conjuring is probably the biggest example, but The Exorcist is a big one. Mm-hmm. And yes, bonus points if they're facing doubt about the modernization of faith and realize that, no, Satan is real. So Professor of Religious Studies at Iowa State University, Hector Avalos, argues that while a lot of these religious horror films may rely on popular religious tropes because they know that they scare us, that we recognize them, other creators actually believe them and use it as a tool. So here's a quote about his thoughts from a Vice article called "Why Are So Many Horror Films Christian Propaganda?" And this article is by Josiah Hess. Avalos points to 2013's The Conjuring, the true story tale of Christian ghost hunters that has since developed a franchise of spin-offs, which closes with text quoted from the real-life ghost hunter the film is based around. Diabolical forces are formidable. These forces are eternal and they exist today. The fairy tale is true. The devil exists. God exists. And for us, as people, our very destiny hinges upon which one we elect to follow. The article goes on to point out that The Conjuring was specifically marketed towards faith-based institutions. I actually tried to get into this because when I was in China, there were certain things that couldn't be shown. And I remember religious movies were part of it. And I tried to see if that's true now, because I was curious if, like,
Right.
did The Conjuring, because I saw Iron Man 2 there, and after I walked out, I was like, that is definitely not the movie that played in America. I don't know what. But yeah, I was just curious. If listeners know, please write in. But I thought that was interesting. I've never really thought about it. And that article is specifically taking issue with the true story part, not just with this, but with other religious horror movies that do this. Because it is true that there is something that happened, but to imply like the whole thing is true,
right,
gives you the whole like, oh, there must be a demon. And
well, they're true love story, that immeasurable. They cannot be separated. They cannot, all these things. I'm like, they are really pushing this narrative that they were the best Christian couple, because according to the news articles and like background talk of people who knew them, that was not who they were.
Right.
This kind, gentle, loving, like perfect couple with the perfect kids that I'm like, they're really using that trope to say how amazing their marriage, Catholic marriage is. Because not only are they Catholic, but they are the perfect practicing Catholics, as well as like the perfect duo who she's behind her man who lets him lead.
Mm-hmm.
That whole like stereotype in that like I'm the quiet head, but I'm behind my husband, pushing him forward to be the best man he can be. But he's the leader in our family. He speaks for us, and he takes over and can be the only one that talks these demons out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real interesting propaganda of that level that I'm like, what? That it's to the point that I'm like, this is making it not believable.
Well, okay. Here's my big spoiler alert.
Okay,
I watched the newest Conjuring, the last one, Last Rites, and I really enjoy these movies. I understand every critique. I'm like, yes, I get it. So I'm not saying
for sure.
Yeah, but I do enjoy them. It could be because I was just raised in this. I'm not sure, but so Last Rites has a whole, because they have a daughter, Judy, and it has a whole scene about how she almost died when she was born, and she's living on borrowed time, I guess. Like this demon is coming for her.
Oh, they finally turned that, like, because they've used that kind of like,
she's always in danger. Like
been in danger.
Yeah, their daughter's always kind of been in danger. And you know, in the end, their family comes together and like faces their demons, shall we say? But and she kind of gets possessed. Going back to, actually, now that I think about it,
does she?
Yeah, kind of. But it was interesting to me because at the end, it says thanks to Judy, so I guess had been involved or had signed off on this. But it also has, you know, they have the kind of yellow text at the end, as we mentioned. And it said something like, Ed and Lorraine Warren, you know, were very controversial in what they did and their lives. But they were, and they said, you know, I don't know, the first or non-ordained demonologist. Like they gave a bunch of things. But I just thought it was interesting that they had a note that was like, no, they were very controversial.
Like, we have to come back and address this because now all this is coming about to like people being like, we did not like them. They used us. Like all these conversations.
Because these are like, again, like they're not necessarily true in that way, but it is true that there are people behind the stories that they are telling, and who knows how they were treated or their story was told or how they were manipulated. I don't know. I have no idea. But the idea that it's like a true story will make you think, yes, okay.
Well, the perfect ending that happened with The Conjuring 2, with the little girl saying, y'all are my best friends and you believe me. And then later on, the little girl's like, hey, no, this is not what happened. They used us. They did not listen to me. I'm like, and then her life was not great after the fact. And the history with that family was not pretty. Like they went through a lot of rough things after the fact. And like they got made fun of and they got ridiculed after they left. Like Lorraine Warren and the Warrens did fine doing their own thing, but they never got any, you know, not that they're indebted to them in any way, but like things were not going great for them. And according to some of the stories, they're like, yeah, we were not close.
Yeah. Well, you know, okay. The interesting thing about this is I stumbled upon what I thought was a horror movie, but it was a BBC news story. And it was like a kind of modern day, I think it was in the 80s or something, World of Worlds, where they did like a Halloween broadcast where they were pretending that they had stumbled upon this ghost in this house, or this possession in this house. When I was watching it, I was like, this is The Conjuring 2. This is exactly the story of The Conjuring 2. And I looked it up, and they were like, yeah, that's where it came from. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But apparently it scared everybody that saw it. This is real. Which is kind of what we're talking about here.
Right. I mean, it is interesting. Again, like when you see these superheroes bigger than life, and again, they're portrayed by someone as great as the two actors that played that. Patrick Wilson, he's kind of noted as being, thus far, a good man, like supportive of his wife, been faithful, like even with him becoming famous in these roles as being like the super dad, the super father, the super husband, like he seems to be this endearing guy. So everybody really latched on to him being this Warren character as well. And it is interesting that you have that narrative because they make sure to play this up, because the way Conjuring is as successful as this is the based on true story type of conversation. It's the director who came in immediately was like, we're going to do these new jumps, these new scares, these possessions, this claps, the random child running from room to room, which he loves to do, by the way.
Ball rolling.
Random ball rolling.
Random.
Kid giggling. Stop that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but with all of that, but you have this narrative of this power couple who are superheroes of the Catholic world who's figured out this demon thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking about this. I'm not really sure how to articulate it well, but I was thinking about it when I was watching the second one particularly. A lot of times they involve like the Warrens come in to a family that is going through a pain, struggle, whatever, and kind of, fixing things around the house, making breakfast, like all of these
Becoming
things.
The father figure.
Exactly. And I was thinking about how when I was a kid, I used to get like little kid crushes that didn't mean anything, but I would get kid crushes on like a teacher who would do that or a doctor who would do that. And so it makes sense to me that when people watch this, you see this couple that seems really loving and know each other so well. And then you see them caring for these other families and being like, I wish I had somebody that would come into my life and would be like, you know what? Let me make you breakfast and let me fix your piping. I can do that.
Right. Well, again, like he brings in safety. They brought in safety somehow. Yeah. It felt like when they had that scene with the breakfast, it's like it's not felt this warm or like home in a long time. Or when he plays a song to remember the father who loved music and they hadn't had that home in a long time, but he brings in that safety. Because once again, when we talk about completion of family, there must be a father who was present. And even in the first Conjuring, he's gone a lot at the beginning because he's a trucker providing for the family.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, I would say, here comes this, they're not technically part of the Catholic Church, but they're part of the Catholic Church. They come in and they give you this belief, safety. Like in the first one, I always remember so clearly when it's like, your children aren't baptized. Like, it's just like this idea of the church will bring you this comfort and this safety from this darkness that you can't explain, can't get rid of, don't know what it is. Probably a witch or a demon.
Or both.
Or both. The first one, kind of famously both.
A witch who turned into a demon.
Yep, exactly. And so I also wanted to mention this. I have not seen the second Black Phone movie. I saw the first one, and I've seen Sinister, and they're done by the same folks. And writer C. Robert Cargill told Polygon, the minute an audience sits down for a horror movie, everybody in that audience is Christian. If there's a demon in the movie, everyone's immediately like, yes, reading from the Bible can chase it away. Yes, hell is a real place. Yes, of course, the devil can impregnate a woman. You can have a child of the devil. That makes total sense. And then they get up and leave it all there in the movie theater. It doesn't matter what religion you are when you sit down for horror. Christianity is baked into our horror to the point where people understand and acknowledge the rules, so we knew we could just say it out loud. So I thought this was really interesting because the people involved in these movies are religious, and they've said that they are. But I also think it's interesting that he said, like, you can sit down, watch that movie, and then leave it. But, like, you kind of know, because we do recognize those things. But the whole article was interesting because, at least according to this, they were very, this is what we believe, but if you just sit down, watch this movie, and then leave, that's okay with us. Like,
you do you.
Yeah, you do you. I'm sure there's probably more I could dig into. I guess now that I think back on it, Sinister I had already clocked as being something I might talk about in this outline. But the Black Phone I hadn't really. And now that I think about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, because it's very like heaven and hell.
Oh. Sinister, I'm trying to remember. I just thought that was a lot about family.
It is. It's kind of like culty family thing gone wrong, where he's spending more time trying to write his book and look into these things, and his family goes, it goes off the rails, shall we say. That movie is frequently in the like top 5 spots of scariest movies of all time. So
I can't remember it. I've seen it twice, and every time I watched it, I was like, again, I've seen this one. Oh yeah, the movies.
Yeah. Well, they usually measure that by heartbeat, and I think a lot of things can do heartbeat.
Too much slushies.
Yeah, literally eating too much could do it to you.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying. Okay, so again, we're going to have to come back to non-Western religious movies, but I did want to include here the flip of when the religious person is bad. Those do exist. The Last Exorcism, The Sacrament, Stigmata, Saint Maud, The Last of Us, yes, and Martyrs, just the whole movie. So this is a French film that was created by Pascal Langier, who was experiencing depression. He was experiencing depression and suicidality at the time he wrote it, and was inspired by Catholicism and sainthood. Very basically, the film involves a group of people who torture women to get the secrets of the afterlife, and they call these women martyrs because of their suffering. Only it never works, and they've only created victims. Langier has said he wanted the audience to feel and bear witness to real pain. Like, they actually put the definition. I've watched this movie. They put the definition of martyrs on there, and it's like to bear witness. And, quote, share it as part of an honest process of communion. It was a very Catholic process. I have a very Catholic mind.
Religion has hurt a lot of us.
It has. And I'm not going to go into it, but I'm just going to say that this movie is incredibly upsetting and has been banned in a lot of places. It started this whole thing in France where they're like, censorship or what? What are we doing? But yeah, Stigmata, I want to go into very briefly too.
I remember that was a big deal. People were upset.
So in that movie, which Eves and I bonded over one time, it's a classic 90s. Yes. Oh my gosh. So in this movie, Patricia Arquette's character is, we assume, getting possessed, I guess. But she's getting like stigmata, which is, the marks on your back and the blood where the nails have gone through, just like Christ went through. But at the end, it turns out it was the Catholic Church that had somebody at the Catholic Church was doing this because they had discovered that there was an unreleased part of the Bible that said,
that's a big trope.
Yeah, that said essentially, like, you don't have to come to the church to worship me. You don't have to, you can do it wherever. And so they were so scared that people would stop coming to church and would stop giving them power that they were trying to destroy it, but it all comes out at the end. And I loved that movie as a kid. I thought it was really powerful. I was like, oh, I don't have to go to church, Mom. Have you seen Stigmata?
We were really caught up in the religious because, like, Bless the Child was a Catholic, like, the good to evil to good to who did this. It was definitely pro-Catholic, by the way. But those kind of movies, it really does make you feel like, yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah,
this a correct theory.
Right. And to be honest, like looking back, I watched Stigmata within the past couple of years, and I was like, oh, it's not as good as I remember. But
as a kid, it's probably like huge.
As a kid, because she's like levitating and she's using this voice that's like, you don't have to go. Like, it's just I remember it clearly. It really stuck with me.
Did you go tell your mom that?
Yeah, my mom was.
This is probably why all the Catholics were like, no, this is not a good movie.
No, they did not like it at all. They did not like it at all.
If I remember, because it kind of portrayed her as being like a Christ figure, and a woman being portrayed as a Christ figure is a huge no-no. This was during the time also Madonna tried to make out with a Christ figure. So all of these things were not okay.
Oh my gosh. I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, also something that a lot of very religious people don't find okay. The flip of when the witch or the non-Christian religious person is good. I think there are a lot of examples of that, but they're not as mainstream. I think like there are some I was thinking of where I actually couldn't say for sure that they weren't Christian. I just always assumed they weren't, and then I had to kind of examine some things. But like I was going to say Paranormal Activity 2, when she's the person who was their housekeeper was kind of saging their house, and they fired her because they thought she was doing like creepy witch stuff. But I actually don't know. I mean, maybe that is part of how she goes about Catholicism. I don't know, so I can't say for sure. But you know, examples like that. Another thing that we have talked about a lot when it comes to religion is shame. And religious horror, there is a lot of that going on. I think we're already going pretty long, so we can't go into this too much, but like Carrie is a big one, which I still have not seen. I've seen the Carrie 2. Remember?
Why have you not seen this?
I don't know.
What is causing you to stop?
I don't know, but I've seen Carrie 2.
Watch it this month.
Okay. I'm actually still in my Halloween. I didn't finish
you have to watch it this month.
Okay. I will. But that's a big one of like, she gets, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't seen it, but she gets her period, right? Mm-hmm. And
there's so much shame in this level of like, if you got your period, that means that you're being sexually active. There's so many like negativities to this. And again, I think this has everything to do with like the mother's trauma, possibly being raped, which is the indication I could be wrong. Also like her being not knowing what this is. So the shame, like she thinks she's dying. So there's the embarrassment with the shame that comes along with that in so much of this. And just like good old bullying, but being ostracized because your mother is so afraid of you learning too much.
And her mother was really religious, right?
Super religious. And he is all about abstinence. Also a conversation about abstinence.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Going back to The Witch, which we do have a full episode on, that one was very much the main character, Thomasin, was coming into puberty and her sexuality, and everybody in her family blamed her for it. Especially like the younger twins who were creepy, maybe not as much. They were just weird.
They were the witch, right? Though? Because they're talking to Black.
They were the ones talking to Black Phillip.
Yeah, the whole time, and knew Black Phillip. And then Black Phillip came to life.
Yes. For anyone who hasn't seen this movie, this might sound strange. But yeah, but everybody else in her family, like her little brother's kind of like checking her out, and then her mom blames her for, I guess, distracting her dad, and maybe he's checking her out.
No, she blames her for the death of the baby.
The death of the baby, but also stealing the like precious heirloom that her father had sold.
Yeah, but it kind of begins with the baby.
Yes. Well, and that's an interesting movie because I was reading in preparation for this kind of some different takes on it, because some people were like I said earlier, in a lot of these religious horror movies, the witch is evil. This is an interesting case because the witches do kill that baby. But also at the end, you understand why she chooses. I guess choose is kind of a. She kind of gets pushed
what she's
into
being,
that.
what she has to do to survive. So she's like, if I'm going to be accused of this, might as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Be full.
Yeah,
is what she says. But like, it is interesting because also they also killed the young kid, the boy, the younger brother.
Yes,
and in the end, the two kids.
Yeah. So it's an interesting case. I hadn't really thought about it that much in terms of this.
A conversation of like the desirability of young women in this. Like they did, the witches and Black Phillip did everything to get to her.
Yep. And the baby they were rubbing it on their skin as if they were going to get younger from it. They were going to have
that younger. Also, maybe the jealousy is that the child was being raised by the younger daughter instead of the mother and would do a better job. But then, like, there's so many ideals too. Who would replace the family, like who becomes the main family member go to. And the matriarch, it would be the younger woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was very much that was happening during the like Salem witch trials period. Yes. And they were their father figure was so puritanical, they got kicked out of a religious settlement. So she had internalized a lot of that stuff. This brings us to my one of the final points. I just want to talk about this. I'm so sorry.
Good.
Okay, because we were talking. It was Halloween when we were discussing this, and I just had this memory of getting tricked into going into a religious haunted house. And they are sometimes called judgment houses or hell houses.
Hell houses.
And I wanted to know more about them because I feel like this relates. This is like a religious horror pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So these were first popularized in the 1970s. And I want to read this abbreviated quote. It is abbreviated from Sacred Matters magazine about what these things are about. If you've never been to one, okay. Quote, "In practice, my house was mostly episodic, distilling the complexity of teenage life into a series of impressionistic caricatures. A naive group of children dabbled in the occult by playing with a Ouija board. An unwed couple got a little handsy while Boys to Men played in the background. A goth kid with a chain wallet smoked weed. And, most vividly, the two climactic scenes representing characters the abortion girl and the suicide girl. Both died, and the next room, they were in hell, where death metal was blaring out of large speakers suspended from the ceiling. The gendering of the wages of sin did not occur to me until much later, but the primary bodies being judged in judgment houses belong to women. In the final room, my name was displayed on a TV set along with the names of those in my group. I think it was supposed to be an obituary. At any rate, the guide told us we had to make a choice. The door on the left would take us to heaven, the one on the right to hell. In retrospect, of course, I wish I had chosen hell. I later heard a rumor that those who picked hell were given fruit punch and cookies. Opting for heaven, my reward was to sit at a table with one of the deacons of the church." Okay, so I did go to one of these. Before I get into it, this was a quote from John David Penniman in conversation with Kelly J. Baker. Mine was much more boring than what this sounds like. I went into a room and they just read us. They did do the like, don't do drugs, don't have sex, kids reenactment things. But they mostly just read from the Bible and it was super boring.
I'm trying to remember if I've been to one because I feel like I have a picture of me going into one, but I have no recollection because it would have been when I was a missionary. So it didn't make sense that I would have gone to one. I would have been a part of one, which is really horrifying in itself. But I don't think so. And maybe that's why I don't remember. Maybe I was a part of it, which makes me really sad. And I'm so sorry to any of the kids if I was there. But I really don't remember. But I feel like, because there was definitely this push. So the 90s really felt like brought about this whole relevant conversation, like even to the point that there is still, I think, the beginning publishings of a Christian magazine called Relevant Magazine. And it's supposed to replicate like Paste magazine or Rolling Stones magazine, but for Christian.
Okay.
But in this level of like trying to connect with the youth. And this is also during the big youth movements that we've talked about since then, like so many things.
Yeah.
That have given me pause and a lot of firsthand and secondhand embarrassment. But all of those things, that this was a big thing. Like we were going to do this. This also came about and I know you're going to talk about in a minute, trunk or treat. Like this was around the same time. But I do remember like they did everything they could to try and to scare you. And by this point, I believe it slowly started kind of fading away because we realized, oh, this is not going to work. We're going to have to do something that makes it fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they have tried a lot of things, and some of them have been very, very successful.
Scaring people to thinking they are going to hell and that all you have to do is say a prayer.
Yes.
That definitely works.
Yes. And also, just to, I don't know, maybe give you some solace, Samantha, a lot of people who worked at these places have said they really, really deeply regret it, but they were young and didn't know.
Like the true love waits, man.
Yeah.
There's so much, I cringe.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Well, we have a quote from somebody in here who worked at one who is now like, I am so sorry. And it says like it gives him trauma to remember it. So here's a quote from our old employer, How Stuff Works, by Chris Opfer, about a Texas hell house that we're going to be talking about. This is one of the biggest ones on the scene. Quote, continue walking through the maze of scenes and you'll eventually get a heavy dose of the destruction that the megachurch says comes with being outed as gay, having premarital sex, or tipping the bottle back before the legal age. And then here is a quote from a Vice article by the same Josiah Hess mentioned previously about the same Texas hell house. There were angry Trump supporters shouting to our left and enraged Black Lives Matter protesters on our right. A snide demon slithered from one side to the other, proudly exclaiming, "Welcome to my world where anyone different from you is a threat, where evil grows and hatred runs deep. It's one of my oldest and most successful tactics." Smiling through ominous goth makeup, the demon whispered in the ears of each protester, planting racist slurs and stirring up divisions. The verbal combat was punctuated by the sound of an exploding handgun fired by a Trump supporter into the chest of a BLM activist who collapsed to the ground dead. This is traumatic. Okay. According to the same article, the Trinity Church Hell House became one of the most notorious when, in 1999, it recreated the Columbine school shooting a mere 6 months after it happened, portraying the killers as agents of Satan, aiming to slaughter all the Christian students. And yes, one of the old lines recalled by an actor, quote, "I have deceived this girl, first getting her hooked on Harry Potter, Magic the Gathering, and Dungeons and Dragons." Wow. All right. And yeah, surprise, surprise, sex trafficking is big in these things too. Here's another quote. "All Jessica wanted was a fun night with a nice guy. Now she'll be having fun with a lot of guys for a long time." That's how messed up these things are.
So they're going on with these new tactics. This sounds like the Westboro church of like teenagers, essentially. But so in the first scenario with the Black Lives Matter people were the ones that were going to hell?
I would assume...
Not the dude that he shot him?
I would assume so.
Not the one that murdered him?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Not the murderer?
No.
Because he loves Trump, so obviously Jesus.
Right, definitely so. And he's Christian for sure, so...
Apparently. I thought it was like going to be one of those ones, like the relevant ones that both of them are evil. I'm like, odd. I don't like either one of this, but what? Okay.
From what I read of it, it sounds much more like it was like the demon was whispering in the protesters' ears. And perhaps...
And the murder wasn't the sin. It was
the murder was caused by these protesters. No, I mean, this is so disturbing. Like, it's one of those things when I was reading about it. The one I went to is fairly tame.
Yeah. I feel like this sounds like these are the extremist versions.
Yeah.
Again, the Westboro of churches,
yes.
That you were like, you've become evil. Like this is the evil you're talking about. I'm sad that it's still happening. I thought we had let these go.
Yeah, they're still going. This church is still going. There's a documentary about it. And it's huge. It's called Hell House, but not the horror movie Hell House LLC.
Which I love that house.
I love that movie. Yeah, me too. But yeah, I mean, that's so upsetting and disturbing. And as I said in these articles, people were saying this traumatized me. Like, I can't. It's hard for me to even go to church, even if I was religious after I went through this.
Right.
Especially any kind of marginalized people, like queer people, were saying I cannot even. And as mentioned, this reminded me when I was reading about it. This reminded me of CPCs. This is they trick you inside. They show you these horrific things that aren't true. Like, a lot of people pointed out, so many of the messaging they have behind them are not true at all. Very upsetting and offensive for young people, perhaps. And they're just, I don't know. There's something about the idea that I would go into a haunted house and not realize that I was about to be like, not have a fun, scary time, but actually feel really traumatized.
Right. Being told that your life is going to put you to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Also, majority of the people you probably already see in there are the most judgmental people that you know exist. Because people who, I say this as a person who may have heart in one, and probably most judgmental people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, a lot of the younger people who worked there had no idea. But like the person who runs it has, I mean, if you want to get upset by quotes, he is a dime a dozen. Very, very upsetting quotes. But he thinks it works, and he has a lot of quotes about how horror is good to get people to become more religious. But yeah, those are still a thing. And I did, after researching this, I did think, Hell House LLC, the horror movie, not about this at all, is about a cult and demonic possession, though. So I guess that can...
There you go.
Play in.
Mouth of hell. That's often a...
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
The gates of hell.
Mm-hmm. That's true. But yeah, we did, Samantha and I also got to talking about trunk or treating, which I didn't know was a religious thing.
That's how it began. Gotta save those kids from trafficking and razor blades.
You would not believe how many comments I saw about this on Nextdoor this year. Nextdoor has been off the chain lately for me, Samantha.
Really? I haven't seen many things. I've been seeing a lot of discourse about SNAP benefits, which is a horror in itself. But trunk or treat is an interesting practice because they understood that they couldn't take away the joy of costumes and candy. So they had to figure out a way to make it, quote unquote, safe and religious. Now, I will say for the most part, the most that I've seen are usually for young children.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're older, they're like, sure. But like the panic of like, again, poisoning of things, trafficking of children, apparently. And bad things have happened. Don't get me wrong. It may just because of like timing or not necessarily because of the rituals, but they were like, we're going to make this safe. We need to make sure that, we are protected and that we know each other type of conversation. And also it did give them an excuse to decorate their cars.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. But yes, it did begin as a church ideal that kind of spread into like schools being like, well, maybe this is a good option, which I don't think is bad because a lot of the neighborhoods, you don't know if people are actually giving out candy or not. And I know I saw one HOA saying that people from outside of the community couldn't come in to trick or treat. So like that excluded a lot of people.
Huh.
Because they were known as a good neighborhood for candy. You know.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
You know.
Sky Country. Yeah.
So you have to, like, they were like, you know what, let's give this opportunity to everyone into doing this way. So.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because I hadn't thought about it. I've done a lot of different types of trick-or-treating when I was a kid. And I hadn't really considered the history of it. But I had done a trunk or treat, and I had done just...
Have you?
Yep. Around the square kind of thing. But through this next door fiasco that happened, I learned that this is still a conversation. People are really judgmental about it. As in, you should take your kids to a church or else.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And also, apparently now there's like you can sign up, at least in my neighborhood, you can sign up and say I'm a house that will be offering candy or I'll be offering whatever.
My old neighborhood did that. They had an actual route for the parents to know who would be available for what, and also allergies.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Which is not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing at all. Lastly, just to mention, the satanic panic does have a lot to do with this.
Yes, it does.
A lot of these movies, and practices that we've discussed did come. And I read that we were kind of in a second wave of this happening. But, this idea that having a movie like The Exorcist, my mom was like, no, it will bring in the devil. So we cannot have it in the house. And that was
a clock.
Oh, gosh. I felt so cool when I was watching The Exorcist. I was like, she doesn't know. I'm a horrible, horrible kid. What a horrible kid. But, these movies they have had and continue to have real consequences around the world. Some of it will probably have to come back and just do a more in-depth episode on. But just if people believe this is true, if you see the based on a true story, and witches in particular, and women in particular, and people of color, marginalized people in particular, are painted as the ones that are possessed or evil or agents of the devil, it has had a real fallout. So we'll have to come back to that. But yes, in the meantime, listeners, if you have any thoughts, any suggestions, anything we missed, because there are so many things in this genre.
Many. Everything and in TV shows that pop into my head, and flavors of Korean, because I was not even talking about the fact that the Catholicism has kind of started to happen within Korean culture to the point that it is pushing up the popularity of Catholicism and how they save people. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of extra homework to do. So listeners, please let us know. What should we be talking about? What should we look at next? You can email us at hello@stuffwenevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff We Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a new merchandise at Cotton Bureau, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff We Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite shows.